Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand.
In our top story, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has presented conclusive evidence of Iran's nuclear weapons program. The Prime Minister revealed on television details of what he called one of the greatest achievements of Israeli intelligence gathering. After identifying and surveilling a facility deep in the heart of Tehran, Israeli agents infiltrated the secret compound and extracted over half a ton of documents and brought them back to Israel in one night. The information proves the hardline Islamic Republic has continued its goal to nuclearize missiles, warheads, and bombs. Washington verified the material before the announcement, and a White House press release stated, "These facts are consistent with what the United States has long known. Iran has a robust clandestine nuclear weapons program that it has tried and failed to hide from the world." President Donald Trump has until the 12th of May to make his final decision regarding the Iranian nuclear deal. But even before Prime Minister Netanyahu's announcement, there was aggressive chatter coming out of Tehran. Rebecca has more on that story.
Yes, Yochanan, Iranian officials claim to have made progress on the country's rogue nuclear weapons program, despite its continued obligations under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action Agreement. Ali Akbar Salahi, the head of the country's atomic energy organization, bragged that Iran can enrich uranium at even higher levels than before the nuclear agreement. Iran's nuclear program remains a grave threat to the Jewish state and a concern for President Trump, who has repeatedly called the Obama-brokered nuclear accord the worst deal the United States has ever made. The president has remained in close contact with Israeli officials, and he dispatched his newly appointed Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, to Israel. Pompeo assured the Israeli people that if Donald Trump cannot fix the disastrous Iranian nuclear accord, he will withdraw from it.
Palestinian Authority boss Mahmoud Abbas has stepped up his anti-Semitic rhetoric and is now blaming the Jews for the Holocaust. Abbas told a gathering of Palestinian leaders in Ramallah that the Holocaust was not caused by anti-Semitism, but rather by the Jews' poor social behavior and financial matters such as money lending. The PA chief also desperately attempted to negate the Jews' historical claim to the land of Israel in an erratic, nonsensical, and purely fictional history lesson. Jason Greenblatt, the White House envoy to the Middle East, said Abbas's remarks must be condemned by all. His words are very distressing and terribly disheartening. Peace cannot be built on this kind of foundation. U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman responded to the Palestinian leader's anti-Semitic tirade, saying, "To all those who think Israel is the reason we don't have peace, think again."
The leaders of North and South Korea have agreed to work together as one nation, effectively ending the Korean War. Last week, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un signed a historic treaty with the president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in. North Korea says it will close its nuclear test site and allow foreign experts to participate in the process of denuclearization. Kim Jong-un has expressed his eagerness to meet with President Trump, who remains reserved but optimistic at the possibility of the rogue country's nuclear disarmament. South Korea's leader praised President Trump for brokering the peace agreement, effectively ending the nuclear crisis. Moon Jae-in said that President Trump should win a Nobel Peace Prize for his historic efforts.
Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, was in Israel as part of his regional tour of the Middle East. Abe emphasized that peace between Israel and the Arabs is a priority for him. He added that he intends to work for peace by engaging with both sides in a constructive manner. Last December, Japan's foreign minister invited Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to a four-way peace summit hosted by Tokyo that would also include PA leader Mahmoud Abbas and White House Representative Jared Kushner. Netanyahu responded that if Washington agreed to attend, Jerusalem would gladly participate.
Hamas continues to incite violent riots on the Gaza border, and the U.S. ambassador to the UN has called the terror group out for exploiting children and treating them as if they are expendable. Nikki Haley addressed the UN Security Council, saying anyone who truly cares about children in Gaza should insist that Hamas immediately stop using children as cannon fodder in its conflict with Israel. Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, has informed the world body that Hamas uses women and children as human shields. They hide behind them, hoping that they will be hurt and even die. Danon stressed that this is the essence of evil, and that the Palestinian leadership views any death as an opportunity to manipulate public opinion.
Dozens of people were killed, including at least 18 Iranians, in the latest round of airstrikes on the radical Islamic State's military infrastructure in Syria. Officials with the Syrian opposition forces said that a high-ranking member of the Revolutionary Guard was among the dead. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights stated that one of the bases pummeled in the attack was a known weapons depot that stored surface-to-surface missiles. This compound was also used by Tehran as a recruitment and paramilitary training center for the Syrian Army's 47th Brigade, which consists of Hezbollah and Iranian forces.
Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman reportedly had some choice words for Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas: either come to the negotiating table or shut up and stop complaining. The Crown Prince reportedly told a delegation in New York City that over the last several decades, the Palestinian leadership has missed one opportunity after another and rejected all the peace proposals it was given. He said it is about time that the Palestinians accept the proposals and come to the negotiating table.
The coffee giant Starbucks has apparently caved in to anti-Semitic pressure and fired the head of the Anti-Defamation League from his role in the company's upcoming diversity training program. The ADL's Jonathan Greenblatt was asked to help prepare and present Starbucks' anti-bias training seminar. However, after several objections from anti-Israel groups, including one of the leaders of the Women's March, who publicly supports the virulent anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan, Starbucks rescinded Greenblatt's participation and said it would use the ADL in a consulting role.
Jordan is reportedly preparing to revoke the citizenship of Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and 30 members of his senior staff. Relations between the PA and Amman have been strained for some time. The Hashemite monarchy views the Palestinian population within Jordan as a demographic threat, and PA leaders have expressed anger over Jordan's perceived willingness to negotiate with Israel. A London-based Arabic-language newspaper reported that there will also be major changes in the visa arrangements for the Palestinian leaders, limiting them to temporary visitors' rights in the Hashemite kingdom.
The Jewish state is still reeling after a senseless tragedy claimed the lives of 10 Israeli teenagers last week. A group of high school seniors in a pre-army preparatory program were hiking in the Arava Desert when a heavy rainstorm caused intense flash flooding and waves 3 meters high swept over the group. Survivors described their friends being carried off by the wall of water. Israeli police and IDF volunteers worked throughout the night searching for survivors, but unfortunately found only bodies. Thousands of Israelis attended candlelight vigils to honor the 10 students, 9 of them young women, whose lives were lost in an instant.
Jerusalem is abuzz ahead of the opening of the United States Embassy later this month. The American consulate building has been undergoing a whirlwind renovation, which U.S. President Donald Trump said has cost the American taxpayers less than $500,000. The president said that the proposed budget for the new embassy was $1 billion, which he felt was unacceptable. So he consulted David Friedman, the American ambassador to Israel, to find a cost-effective way of moving the embassy quickly. The president recently announced that by converting the existing consulate into the embassy, the diplomatic mission will open within 3 months of its announced relocation at a great savings to the American people. President Trump said that he is proud of his decision to recognize Jerusalem and is so excited that he may attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony this May 14th, which will coincide with Israel's 70th Independence Day. The sitcom comedian Roseanne Barr says that her lifelong dream is to live in Israel, and she hopes to make that dream a reality someday. Speaking at the Jerusalem Post conference in New York, Barr said that she had the distinct pleasure of personally thanking U.S. President Donald Trump for moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, which she said is the first step to peace in the world. Roseanne said that she's always had the fantasy of living in the Jewish homeland. Someday, she hopes to make Aliyah.
The Druze community of Israel has recently celebrated their annual holiday by making a pilgrimage to the gravesite of the biblical figure Jethro. The Bible says that the father-in-law of Moses was a wise man. Jethro was a Midianite priest who honored the one true God and gave his son-in-law some very sound advice on how to rule the Israelites. The Druze community reveres Jethro as a prophet and visits his tomb annually. Druze are not Muslim, but rather an offshoot of Islam, which has made them the focus of persecution for over 1,000 years. There are about 130,000 Druze living in Israel who are fiercely loyal to the state. They serve in nearly every sector of society, including the Israeli army. This diverse, eccentric community allows people of all faiths to visit the tomb of Jethro near the Sea of Galilee during their holiday and to celebrate by shopping in their bazaars and dining in their restaurants.
176 cyclists from all over the world convened in Jerusalem for the beginning of the Giro Ditalia bicycle race. On Friday, the opening shot was fired at Jaffa Gate and riders pedaled around the ancient walls of the old city of Jerusalem. Saturday, they rode from Haifa to Tiberias along the shores of the Sea of Galilee, then to Nazareth, back to Haifa, and then straight to Tel Aviv. The exclusive race finished in the resort city of Eilat in southern Israel on the Red Sea. The cyclists rode about 200 kilometers each day of the Israel tour and are now headed to Europe, where they will spend the next 21 days riding over 3,500 kilometers.
Members of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus traveled to Oslo for the launch of the Norwegian Parliamentary Israel Allies Caucus. Josh Reinstein, president of the Israel Allies Foundation, hailed the move as an incredible step toward promoting faith-based diplomacy in Scandinavia. Norway is the 38th country to establish an Israel Allies Caucus. It was preceded by Guatemala and Romania, two countries that have made significant moves to relocate their embassies to Jerusalem.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Amanda Weiss. She's the director of the Bible Lands Museum. Amanda, thanks for being on the show. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Amanda, the Bible Lands Museum is an incredible place. I go there with my kids all the time. You've done incredible exhibits on the Bible, on the stories of the Bible. What's the inspiration behind the museum?
Well, the purpose of the Bible Lands Museum is to really look at the history of the biblical period and the lands of the Bible. We are a museum about this entire region, and we look at the history from a very different perspective.
You go to a lot of different museums and it's kind of like a stagnant experience. You look at pictures, you look at jars. But at the Bible Lands Museum, you can do different programs like you do at Hanukkah where there's actually actors acting out the stories of the Bible. Why did you decide to do that twist?
Well, that's our specialty because we want to engage young people and all ages. We're all young at heart. And our goal is to create activities. We have apps and games, and on the holidays, and you mentioned the holiday programs, we actually have costumed actors in the galleries that take you through and art workshops for families. But it's a museum that has much more than that as well. We're really dedicated to bringing a story or an issue to life for people and hopefully getting you to look at the heritage and the history of the Bible, the universality of it from a new perspective.
You also have a cooperation with the Museum of the Bible. I was at an event here where they came to discuss the concept of the Museum Bible, and you also are doing things there. What is that relationship all about?
Well, actually, they've been an exciting partner and collegial team. The first exhibition, the only exhibition they ever did in Israel was at the Bible Lands Museum, was the Book of Books exhibition a few years ago. It was really the predecessor to the creation of the museum in Washington, and we've been able to loan them our last special exhibition, which was called In the Valley of David and Goliath, which, if I can give a plug, is available on our website as a virtual tour, so you can actually still see the show, which was very exciting archaeological evidence from the time of King David, right from the land, right from here.
You always do cutting-edge exhibitions, and they're always based on some aspect of the Bible. What's the next thing coming down the pipeline?
So our next exhibition is for the 70th anniversary of the State of Israel, and it's about the color blue. It's actually called Out of the Blue. In Hebrew, it's called El Omek Atchelet, because in the Bible, The word blue is never actually mentioned. The color blue is only mentioned as tchelet, which is the commodity, the dye that was extracted from snails, murex snails. Probably you'll learn more about snails than you might have wanted to know if you come and see this exhibition. But in addition to snails, it really looks at the incredible importance, the significance of blue as the color of the nation of Israel today, and the flag that we fly, and the origins of that, and where does it come from. Even the design of the flag, which comes from the ptil tchelet that we are supposed to wear, that men are supposed to wear as a string in their garments, in their undergarments, that is part of the commandment to be in touch with our faith at all times in Judaism. And that's a very important element that we're able to bring to life. But blue and tchelet isn't only about Judaism, it really was incredibly important in all of the ancient world. So we're going to look at it also from that perspective.
You know, what's interesting about the Biblelands Museum is that most museums are seen as something for adults to come and appreciate fine art, but you always do something to get the kids involved. Why is it so important to get children involved in a museum experience of the Bible?
They're our future. If we lose contact with our children, then we have no future. I work very hard to create innovative programming. We have an amazing team at the Biblelands Museum, and programs in English and in Hebrew and in other languages as well, because our goal is really to excite you, to invite you to come in and discover that the Bible is really all of our heritage and our history. It is the roots of Judaism and Christianity. It is our guidebook to life.
We see Jews and Christians coming together around the world in an unprecedented burst of activity. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing more and more Bible-believing Christians coming to the museum as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have actually special programs and tours that we have developed for our Christian visitors in the Biblelands Museum that include tours in the main gallery in the footsteps of the Bible. And we actually have taken a new twist on it as well, and I know it's a topic that we're all talking about all the time. Israel, the modern state of Israel at 70 years old, we're the startup nation. It's a nickname that we've been called, and we have a pilot project that's a tour that you can go through and look at ancient innovations and their comparison to what's happening today, cutting edge technology that meets the basic needs of humanity today, just as they needed to meet those challenges thousands of years ago.
That's interesting. You know, a lot of museums are based on the idea of what happened in the past, but you're bringing things that are happening in the future. How do you mesh those two things?
Well, it's all continuity. If you think about that thread, of that tchelet thread, even as an origin, and you look at the startup issues that we look at in the Biblelands Museum, they're all about a development and a continuity through time. Nothing happened once and then nothing else happened again, and to develop that, if you think of water resource, Israel is like the most incredible resource for technologies and how to use water in the world today, and how to help globally the issue of water and clean water for hygiene and for people to survive. That's something that we had to deal with in the ancient world as well. How did we deal with it then? And what are we doing today to impact that? Today it's phenomenal.
There are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I would like you all to get to know our museum. We're probably the best kept secret in Jerusalem, and now being on this particular program, I'm hoping that you'll help us change that. Come visit the Biblelands Museum, discover the rich history that we all come from, and visit us on our website, look at our virtual tours, and let everybody know about us. Help us spread the word.
Thank you, Amanda, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Keren Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren Hayesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, world chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Through the work of Keren HaYesod, we believe that in the next 5 years, there will be more Jews in the State of Israel than all the Jews outside of Israel combined. Join us on this historic mission.
In just a few short years from now, for the first time since the destruction of the Second Temple, more Jews will once again be living in Israel than in the rest of the world combined. This incredible milestone is a testament to the truth of God's prophecy, the determination of the Jewish people, and the hard work of Keren HaYesod, which for the past 90 years has dedicated itself to returning the Jewish people home. After the Roman army ransacked Jerusalem in 70 AD, the Jewish nation was scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. But each generation kept faith and dreamed of returning to their ancient home. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget her skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you. Over the centuries, a tiny remnant of Jews constantly remained. By 1800, just 24,000 lived in their homeland, while untold millions built Jewish lives across the globe. Throughout the following 2 centuries, the ingathering of the Jewish people gradually became reality. In the land of Abraham and of King David's ancient kingdom, the Jewish people finally fulfilled Jeremiah's prophecy. There is hope for your future. Your children will return to their borders. The first wave of Jews arrived in the late 19th century, mainly from Russia and Yemen, pioneering some of modern Israel's most familiar cities. Soon before the First World War, they were joined by Jews fleeing the pogroms of Tsarist Russia. They founded the very first kibbutz and revived the ancient biblical language as modern Hebrew. During the 1920s, as Europe was reshaped in the aftermath of war, Jews continued to find refuge in the Holy Land, fleeing from growing anti-Semitism. Crucial to these efforts was the work of Keren HaYesod supporters, who had galvanized Jewish communities and their friends across the world in an effort to see Jews return home. This was critical in helping hundreds of thousands of Jews escape the dark clouds of Europe as the horrors of Nazi Germany became a reality. By the outbreak of World War II, the Jewish population of Israel had swelled to 250,000. This number swiftly grew during the late 1940s as the survivors of humanity's darkest hour headed to the only place they could call home. As the world reeled from the shock of Nazism, Jews were forced to flee persecution once more, this time from the Middle East and North Africa, with around 900,000 Jews expelled or forcibly removed from Arab countries between 1948 and 1970. They arrived destitute in the fledgling state of Israel, eventually playing a major role in its development. Israel has continued determinedly to rescue Jews from danger. Tens of thousands of Ethiopian Jews were airlifted to safety in the 1980s and early 1990s. In the following years, as the Soviet Union collapsed, almost 1 million Jews made the journey to Israel. With the help of Keren HaYesod supporters, they have made new lives in the land of their forefathers. Two millennia after the Roman destruction, we believe more Jews will soon once again be living in Israel than outside of Israel. They will be living in a thriving, independent Jewish state. Finally, as Zechariah predicted, old men and women will sit in the streets of Jerusalem, filled with boys and girls playing. Join us in making this dream a reality. Bible-believing Christians around the world have a role to play in the fulfillment of this biblical prophecy. Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I will lift up my hand to the nations and set up my standard to the peoples, and they will bring your sons in their arms, and your daughters will be carried on their shoulders.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Israel is probably the only country in the world that celebrates its National Independence Day, its anniversary, with numbers. You walk down the streets of Tel Aviv, the streets of Jerusalem, you look up the tallest buildings, and they all have numbers on their roofs or flashing in lights at night. I've seen it over the years, 50, 60, 65, 67, 68, and this year, 70. Why the numbers? Because Israelis still cannot to this day quite believe that we have a sovereign, proud, and free Jewish state in the land of Israel. We still see it as a miracle, and we feel like we have to pinch ourselves, particularly when we look back and look at the immense obstacles, challenges, threats, and ordeals we have overcome to get to this place. It is nothing short of a modern miracle. But Israel over the last 70 years has not just survived. Israel has thrived. We are a world leader in technology. Together with Silicon Valley, we are the innovative kings, helping to forge a 21st century in every field from high-tech architecture to water reclamation to autonomous driving. And we are powerful. We are powerful with an army that's more than twice as large as the British and French army combined. Wow. And a democracy, a country that's never known a second of non-democratic governance, one of the 5 or 6 countries that can make that claim in the world, and yet the only country on that list that has never known a second of peace. Crazy, wonderful accomplishments to the creative Israel in gathering Jews from 70 countries, reviving the Hebrew language. We can go on and on, all of that in 70 years. Remarkable. And yet we also must realize, on this, our 70th anniversary, that of the 194 nations in the United Nations, we're older than more than half of them, which means that Israel is not such a young country anymore. We're kind of middle-aged. But as a middle-aged country, we are not going through any middle-age crisis. We are looking back at our past with immense pride and satisfaction, and we're looking forward to our future with a sense of renewed and indestructible hope.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.